And that's what I learned. I learned the traditional way of Shaolin Kung Fu. That means you build a foundation, and that means you go through physical tests and physical conditions. Tame your mind is one of the great things you can do, but also one of the most challenging things. It's simple but not easy. I think the very good ski jumpers, they find, of course, the optimal mixture between attention and relaxation. Something is changing. And not only physically, but also emotionally and mentally, something is completely changing. And breathing is one good way, not the only one, but one very good and simple way to train your mind or to meditate. When it's like this tough wind blowing and the snow coming down, I went out and it's like, feel alive. That's now nice. Simple, direct, effective.
Hey, it's Surfer of Life and Tommy here. Today at Surfer of Life Studios, we have a very beautiful master from Switzerland, Roland Mastel. You are a former ski jumper and a skier, so it's Nordic Combined has been your sport. You have won 2 bronze medals in the Swiss championships. You are a massage and sport physiotherapist, and you do special scalp acupuncture. After years of training martial arts, you finally found your master, and later you became a Shaolin Master in Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Shaolin Kosmos Qi Gong, and Zen. Now you're a master of Shaolin therapy, founder and teacher in Energy School, husband and a father of 2 boys. Roland, welcome to Surfer of Life.
Happy to be with you. Very happy to be here.
Yeah. I know you enjoy sports. Now there's Olympic Games going. Have you been watching those?
Yeah, I did. As we have just a normal television, I checked once a while, and of course I was happy to see some Swiss women winning. Yeah. But of course I also check nowadays the Finnish sportsmen a lot.
Yeah, because you now actually live in Finland.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically because of my passion, the Shaolin Kung Fu or the Qi Gong, the martial art in general, I booked a flight to Ivalo, Saariselkä, because there was my master giving a course. So we invited him from Malaysia to give a course in Saariselkä, and that was basically an introduction for me, or a call for me to go there. And yes, there in Saariselkä I met my wife, and after our meeting we dated for a couple of months and years, and then we finally came together and married and got some beautiful children.
And now you're here.
And now I'm here.
Your background is also very much being part of sports, and you were actually born very near in the Swiss Alps. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I was born in Sameiden. That's very close to St. Moritz. That's maybe a place the people know better than Sameiden. And that's in the middle of the Graubünden Alps. That's the southeastern part of Switzerland, where you speak this funny language called Rätoromanisch. That's a Latin-based language. And of course, basically living up there in the Alps, you grow up with skis under your feet. So I think at the age of 4 or 5, we already started to ski a little bit. Of course, also ice skating, but more skiing, like cross-country skiing, alpine skiing. And of course, at some point at school, they offer some days where you can choose what you want to try out. And then I ended up trying out some ski jumping. And then at some point, I sticked on that.
Because I've been always wondering about the ski jumping, because it looks so crazy. I've been up in this, like sitting on the pole, not even with my skis on. It's been summertime, so it's been safe.
Yes.
No chance to slip down.
Right.
But always be wondering, like, how on earth you have the courage to come down from there?
Well, basically, up where I grew up, you start to jump when you go alpine skiing. You know, you just have a little Mackie or whatever, and you jump over it, and then it gives you some confidence. And of course, then you switch to the ski jumping hills, but you start, of course, at the small hills. Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it was not fun. It was no fun because when you start with alpine skis. That's a safe thing. But then you continue to get the big skis, the ski jumping skis. And of course, at the beginning, that was not so much fun. It needed a lot of courage, and sometimes there was also some being afraid of within a part of the game. But at some point you get used to it, you get used to the speed, you get used to the feeling, and at some point it makes click and you start to enjoy the moment when you take off. That's most probably most fun of the part, when you take off the table, ski jumping table of the hill.
Okay. And what about as a young junior then? How did you manage to get over the fear? Can you still remember? You told me that it was a bit scary to jump.
Well, basically, our coaches back then, they had an easy tool. They just put you into the track and then they just let you go. And that was not a really fun part. At the beginning, I remember I was like, what am I doing here? And then once he leaves you alone, then you just have no return. Like they say, there is a ski jumping saying, like, down on earth they all come. But the question is how you get down. And I think the confidence you gain with doing something more and more and more over. Like the first, let's say, 5 to 10 jumps were like really not so much fun. But then at some point you get the confidence and then you get used to it. And then you have maybe some little success stories that your position was a little better or your takeoff was a little nicer. And then you start to get enjoy it. You start to enjoy it. And that's the moment where you can get over the fear. But still, the respect of a ski jumping hill always remains. And I think that's a good thing. Having respect and being aware of something is not usual is quite a good thing. But the getting away from the worries and the sorrows or the being afraid is you just continue to do something, and then you get used to it, and then you start to enjoy it.
For us who really don't know the sport, it feels more like it's a mental game, but it's also a very physical sport, right?
Oh yeah, that's something which the ski jumpers are often underestimated, because they think like, or many people think because they are just thin, it's just about going up, and they often have an elevator up, you know. Often nowadays some coaches even carry their skis and stuff like this, so many people have maybe the wrong impression that it's just a pure mental thing. But no, I mean, especially nowadays, not so much maybe in the past, but already back then. But I would say like nowadays for sure, they are extremely well trained physically. So I think good jumper can jump out of the flat floor about 80 to 100 centimeters just up without using the hands. So they are training a lot. Of course, differently. They train often or mostly the fast switch fibers in the muscles. So the training is, of course, limited. It's not so much as an endurance sport, but they train a lot. They're physically on a very, very high level and very, very thin also.
I guess your core needs to be in good shape as well when you're flying in that position? It looks a bit crazy.
Basically,
the whole
everything needs to be involved, and that's maybe also something which the people can't see from outside, or also people who haven't tried it, that basically from the toe till the head, everything is involved. And of course, the core is very, very much important, like in most of the sports, but in ski jumping especially, of course.
It feels, for me, when I'm watching you guys flying, it feels like you need all, like you said, from the toes to head, the fingers, everything needs to be really connected when you're flying in the air.
Right. Everything. And I think what the good guys, I don't consider myself as a good guy, otherwise I would maybe still compete with Janne Ahonen, your most favorite ski jumper or famous ski jumper nowadays in Finland. I would still compete at the Olympics like him. But I think the secret is to have a combination, a well combo between tension and relaxation. I think the very good ski jumpers, they find, of course, the optimal mixture between tension and relaxation. So if you are too tensed, you will not fly. If you are too relaxed, you don't have the necessary force against the speed. So you need to have both. That's the secret in ski jumping. One of the secrets.
One of the many secrets.
One of the many secrets, yeah.
This was not the only sport. You were also cross-country skiing at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, that's the freaky combination. Like the ski jumpers say, like the Nordic Combined, they are not really ski jumpers. The cross-country skiers, they would say the same about the cross-country skiers. The Nordic Combined are not really cross-country skiers. So I decided to make this combination because of various reasons. Maybe it was also because these sports at this time when I competed was very popular, because we had back then with Hippolyte Kempf an Olympic champion, and this sport was a little better promoted than the pure cross-country skiing or the pure ski jumping. So I did both, and then you have both aspects. You have the ski jumping aspect with the muscles you need for like explosive force, and you have the endurance muscles which you need. And to find the balance between those two sports is quite a challenge. That's true.
Demands even more practice, I suppose.
Well, of course, you have a different training. I would not say more practice than a cross-country skier who purely goes cross-country skiing, because he needs a lot of time investment for his sports, much, much more than a Nordic Combined. Because often they have to cover all, those stages, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, classic, skating, 50 kilometers. So they have from the time for more demanding times to train. The ski jumpers, they have less because they train the explosive muscles. So basically, as we know, coming out of the field of coaches and physiotherapy, their muscles at some point are just tired, because explosive force, after some time you are really tired. So you need the muscles and the nervous system to be recovered. So, but the Nordic Combined, they have for sure more time effort than the ski jumping guys. So the combination is not too easy. So when do you train more the explosive force, the fast force, or when do you train the endurance sports? But of course, there are a couple of guys, especially Finnish guys back in my days, who did that very well.
Yeah, that is true. Let's talk about a little bit that ski jumping, because I'm really, really interested.
Yeah.
And you need to concentrate before you jump. Did you have any certain routines that you were preparing yourself?
Yeah, I think every ski jumper, I would say in every sports, but every ski jumper now in particular has his own way how to prepare to the jumps. That can start with binding the shoes, or when you bind the shoes. It can end up with how you basically pull your suit together. And of course, certain people visualize their jump before they go, or before they end up going into the track. Some people do it before when they are still waiting for the call. Let's say when they are waiting for the next two jumpers in front. So they do their time of visualization. Many different ski jumpers have many rituals, I would say. That's it. And some people, of course, visualize the upcoming jump they want to perform. Or in the training, they can visualize what task they want to change, for example, which they discussed with the coach. So before they jump in the training, they discussed with the coach, okay, you set too low, too high, you were too late at the table or too early, so we're gonna change that. So some people prepare themselves before they jump to especially focus on that spot, because there are so many details. Sometimes it's better to focus on one thing to change than on many different things.
You said that there are different variations of when people start to concentrate before the jump.
Yeah.
How long were you able to focus before the actual jump? What do you think is there a limit of how long you can actually be really focused?
Yeah, I think we are not pure meditators, right? And of course, the more you do something, the longer you can proceed with something. But that's not the task of a ski jumper. At the end, he has to jump long distance. Yeah. And not sitting there 1 hour in this cabin before they go for the jump to meditate. But of course, it depends. It depends also on the personalities, on the individuals. But I would say you can keep up holding your focus between, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes. But the question is whether you need those 5 to 10 minutes. Some people can get focused within a split of a second, or 5 seconds, or 10 seconds, and maybe sometimes it's more effective than someone focusing for 10 minutes. Because basically at the end, focus needs also some energy, and if you don't have the energy to keep on your focus for a long time, you drain yourself. So it would be a little bit a waste of energy when you use or abuse your energy with the excessive focus before you jump. So I think normally the people take their time in ski jumping between 5 and 10 minutes, especially at competitions.
Was it difficult when you were already sort of jumping and then they call you off because of the wind conditions?
Yeah, basically it depends. When you are the guy who is actually at the spot in the track already, being called back, yeah, it's not an easy situation because first off, often you don't know why you're called back. Is it because someone crashed? Normally you could see that.
Yeah.
And you could also hear the people's noise if something like that happened. But often it could occur that some thoughts cross your mind, like, what happened now? Is it the wind changing? Is the wind now going from left to right or circular or coming? Is the wind coming from the front part? Because this is often good for the ski jumper. It gives you the feeling like lifted up. Or is it from the back? Then you need to change eventually your system. Yeah. So when the wind is coming from the front, you can jump more aggressive than if the wind is coming from the back. And all those thoughts, or some of those thoughts, may arise if you are the one being called back right in the track. And some people have different possibilities how to deal with this kind of issue. And I did not have the tools at this time. So for me, it was quite a demanding task to think of being focused again and stuff like that. So that's most probably why I didn't end up being Olympic champion, right?
But you ended up being in the Olympics.
I ended up,
yes,
but I was basically supporting the people. Yeah.
Yes, supporting the people. Well, after your career as being part of the Nordic Combined, you started coaching.
Right.
At what point you went actually to massage therapy school, and also as well you went to physiotherapy, sports physiotherapy school?
Right. Actually, that happened when I quit my career actually, literally at the end of the jumping hill, there was already someone waiting for me and asking like, are you interested in joining us in the ski national team of the Swiss ski jumpers? And then I said like, well, I don't have anything to do now. I quit my career. So I ended up for the first year right out of the school as part of my practical work. So I just had half a year left to complete my degrees, and I could basically work for the national ski jumping team while completing my last practical work. So that's how I ended into the team. And then they wanted to hire me for a further year. And I said to myself, well, I need to have some further education, because if you want me to join in a middle or long-term process, I need to have some specific techniques in addition to help the athletes. I was not complete back then. So I ended up going to Germany and for some studies like manual therapy, manipulation of the spine, and also some visceral things out of the osteopathy, where you go a little deeper into the tissues, especially at the core for the ski jumpers. And then I went back to the national ski jumping team and joined them again. So basically I was taken out in the middle of my school, completed my school, did some further education, and I was taken back into the team. That was very lucky, I would say.
Earlier, you were already interested in martial arts and energy arts.
Right.
And as I know your background now, you started searching your way for these kind of things.
Yeah.
When did it actually happen? Was it when you were waiting for your jump and thinking about the mental part, or how did it actually happen that you started being interested in this area, in this field of
basically sport? Yeah, you know, your whole life is like influenced by many factors. And of course, when you are a sportsman, you are interested at first place to improve your performance. And I think that was back then a wrong mindset. Because what I didn't know or didn't realize back then when I was competing was that in order to perform well, you must be healthy first. So I had, of course, first off, a lot of injuries. I did a lot of somersaults, resulted in some, I would not say major injuries, but minor injuries which affect your body and mind. And often I would also end up in front of or before competitions being sick instead of being in the best shape. All of that, and of course the motivation to perform better and better, led to search what can I do for me, for my body and for my mind to improve. But of course, back then I was like, my performance. I didn't realize that my performance most probably lacked because of my physical and mental shape. So I remember clearly, before I did the massage therapy school, I was going in Austria to a ski gymnasium, because back then in Switzerland we didn't have this combination of graduate in a college at the same time doing your sports. I think in Finland you have the same sports schools, where you basically, for example, in the morning you go to school and in the afternoon you can go for your training. Yeah. So basically, St. Moritz, Stams, Innsbruck, that's very, very near. So I decided to go to Austria. There I met my training colleagues, of course, and one was the later double Olympic champions. I don't know how many Olympic medals he won, but he inspired me to do Qigong. That was Felix Gottwald. And he was my training mate and my roommate for some time. And of course, I looked up at the Austrians and they were so good. And I just asked myself, like, what can I do to get there? And Felix was kind enough to say, like, okay, look, I do Qigong. If you want to do Qigong, that's a part of energy work, breathing work, mental things. He told me, like, 5 o'clock in the morning in this school complex, 5 o'clock in the morning, we will go for a walk. So I ended up 5 o'clock walking with him with specific breathing exercises up the hill. There we did some exercises, watching the sun rising, and went down. And that was the imprint into me. He gave me basically this inspiration to say like, okay, I want to do something like this for my body and mind. But of course it didn't work because for some reason he catch the idea and the essence. And I was still sticking with my mind on using Qigong only for the performance. So only later, many years later, I realized, okay, first you get healthy, then you get the performance. But he was my inspiration.
Okay. That is something that a lot of athletes don't really understand. And a lot of, well, people as well too, that you need to be mentally, physically, you need to feel good to perform better.
Yeah.
As I was a hockey player, I didn't understand that at all. I didn't understand the mental part at all. And later on I realized, and now when I'm watching the Olympic Games, you see people, they really crash.
Oh yeah.
It's the mindset. And you hear them talking like, I always do bad in these competitions. So they're kind of like, they don't understand them.
Of course, it's
the part
always
of the mental and physical combination.
Absolutely. And, I would say, like, of course, also the Austrians back then, and they were famous. I mean, even back then, that's about 20 years plus minus, I would say more than 20 years ago. The Austrians would even hire guys who are specialized in traditional Chinese medicine, Qigong, meditative states of mind, to go with the athletes for the competitions. They hired already back then people to go with them for the training in summer, for the training camps and stuff like this, to start basically working on the mental and the physical aspect. I don't know how they do it now, but this was of course a revolution back then. And if you look at the results back then, at least during a couple of years. I mean, Felix Gottwald also competed with the famous Sampalainen and Hanumanin and the Finnish guys. You know, they would rock. They would literally rock. And sometimes I remember, not in the World Cup, but in the lower classes, before you end up in the World Cup, that they called B World Cup or Alpen Cup, that's for the younger people, they would dominate. You know, they told me back later when we didn't compete anymore. They told me, in the morning they stood up and they were at the breakfast eating, hey, you want to win today or me? Like I won the last 3 times, you can win. Okay. So they were so strong. And of course, when you get that momentum in a team, then you feel even more comfortable. So they did a lot of those things. And Felix Gottwald, now I still have sometimes contact with him on a routine, but not really close. He still goes and he teaches mental training and stuff like this, so they kept him.
This is very interesting, because I've been now talking about different athletes, and I've been talking to, for example, Hanno Möttel, who played in NBA.
Yes.
And he told me that in NBA there was no mental coaching.
Yeah.
It was a weakness.
Right.
Well, this is very interesting. And then we go to Austria 20 years back, and they dominate because of this in the individual sports, especially.
Yeah.
Probably they used it also in alpine skiing as well, because Austria has been a very strong country in alpine skiing.
Yes, actually, I don't really know about the alpine skiing. I know that the ski jumpers were involved and the Nordic Combined, but we have to say not all of them. So basically, I remember the coach of this whole group, who was so successful at this time, was by himself already a Qigong teacher. Qigong is a Chinese breathing energy art, meditation also involved. So, of course, he introduced to his athletes what he's been doing. And then he said, those who are interested, I know even a better guy, which I would like to introduce to you. So I know from communicating with them, and also, of course, sometimes, even when I was competing with the Swiss national team, I would end up in the morning sometimes joining them, because some freaks did some Qigong, so I joined them. They would have, of course, left it open to anyone who wants to do it. So
Nice.
there were, of course, a couple of guys also in the team who didn't want to do it. But for those who wanted to do something in addition, when it comes to mind, breathing, whatever work, they could. And the coach would even support it and go with them. But I know there were also, of course, a couple of guys who were pretty good not using it. And they were completely okay with it. And everyone was okay with any decision the people did. So it was not everyone had to do it and everyone did it. But those who did it, they could do it. It was supported. And often they were very successful with it.
Quite unorthodox way of thinking, that even though you compete to a different team, different country,
Right.
you're welcome to join us because we just feel good.
Yeah, because back then I didn't have no choice, because in the Swiss team, obviously no one was at all interested in it. And back then, this is not to blame anyone. This is just a choice or a preference or a passion you have. Also, our coaches didn't have any interest in it. And so I had to watch for the people who would eventually help me out with this. And there were a couple of Austrian guys who would have no problem even being competitors, to say, like, it's not about competing. We can compete at the competition. Here we just prepare and we can still be nice friends and join our passion, for example.
This is awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
to
it was
hear
a good
this.
time. It
Yeah.
was also, it was special. But for some reason, I think some people with same interests, they gather or they attract each other. And of course, when we did our competitions, we were competitors. But it was still in a very friendly manner, because the idea of the whole process is, you know, just the best shall win. And it's, you can be the best today. To tomorrow, maybe I can be the best. It's just like the best performance shall be fruitful.
And I guess if you're just bitter and you're trying to hide some of these things, it actually doesn't make you a better athlete. It might actually kind of suffocate you if you just don't sharing your information doesn't make you worse. It can help you as well as an athlete. You think about this?
I think so. Personally, at the beginning, of course, you are into this, I would say, like process, or you're just into the flow in the river who flows exactly in this direction, where you, of course, try to get something which no one else has. That's common. That's maybe in the human nature, especially when it comes to competition, that you have a certain advantage. And I personally think it doesn't bring you anywhere. Later I found out, of course, inspired by those, the more you share, the more it brings you something back. And some people may be surprised to hear, I think, hiding the things withhold you rather than bringing you somewhere. So that was the same when I later met Shaolin masters. You know, most of the masters, they would hold back everything, not even to their closest disciples, not even to their children. They would give the secrets further in order to be, or because they were afraid that, for example, if you have a daughter and you teach her, you know, an art, and she gets married to another family, you know, the Chinese were quite strict on that. You know, they would not teach the daughter the art because they were afraid of losing something, their family secrets. And you have that everywhere in sports or in martial arts. But now, at this point, I agree completely with you. I think there is no need to hide everything. It's better to share with everything, because at the end it lies into the person's hands whether they succeed with something or not. You can give them the biggest secrets without any restrictions. It just still lies in their hands whether they want to use it or not. Furthermore, it depends on the individual how far he or she want to go with this secret. And this is the human potential. But at least you give sharing a secret a potential. So what they do with it is up to them.
That is correct.
So this is a different attitude or mindset. So there is no need to hide anything.
That is totally different mindset than
Yeah.
Many of us have.
Right.
There was your start for the Qi Gong, and then you started searching something more. Was this the same time you were actually in the sport still, or were you coaching already and doing this physiotherapy work?
Basically, when I was in sports, I was introduced by Felix into this
and
art.
the search started already then. Like more.
But to be honest, within this time, let's say about for the first 5 to 7, 8 years, I did what I was taught, but I didn't have this success which I wished for myself, for my sports career, and later on for my other careers. So it made me continuing. So I quitted my sports career, and then I became a therapist, and I didn't have the success I wished. And only later, when I searched on, it made click until I found certain persons who opened basically the blockage in my mind to see the things a little more properly. And then it started that I have the success for myself first. So I think that's a crucial point, because many people learn something. I could have done that, but many people learn something and then they teach it. So I was a little different on that. I learned something. I didn't have what I was finding or trying to find for myself. So I searched on until it made click. So only when I by myself felt, oh, no more back pain. Now I got it. No more sick, let's say 3 to 4 times a season or a year. Now I got it. Only when I basically accomplished what I wish for others to have when I coach them, I started really to coach them the way I do. So first I needed experiment with myself, and then I had the direct experience. That's very important. I cannot teach something to someone where I don't have any experience in it, or just theoretical experience. So I had my success. I could overcome my chronic back pain, my asthma. I wasn't sick at all anymore, or just a little bit coughing and stuff like this. I was more happy. I could sleep better. And then I started with the mindset, why should I hold back these things? Now I got it. I should give it to the people, or I should teach it to the people. So it came a little later in my career.
This was a long journey. It's around 10 years so.
Yeah, basically in 94, it was the first introduction in Qigong. And the real success was in 2000, right? 4. That means 10 years of journey to have this click moment. Now I got it.
This is very good for people to understand this, that it doesn't come like this. Sometimes something might click like this. You understand that this is my thing, but usually it takes a longer period of time to find yourself and the understanding of things.
Yes, I think it's a combination between your personal development, which you need, and sometimes personal development don't just happen within 1 year. They need maybe 10 years, like in my case. And then there are other factors which influenced the development also. For example, teachers you have who don't want to share the secrets. Traditionally, they would maybe test you morally, test you physically, whether you are ready to receive their message. And then there are other factors that sometimes the teachers are just not ready for this kind of person to have the same frequency that the informations get really through. So there are many factors, but at the end, I think sometimes if someone, for example, with experience, I think for you it's the same case, can modify their own development of 10 years, some people who are ready, who are motivated, of course, to train or to learn, may achieve the same within, let's say, 5 years or 1 year. So it depends entirely on the circumstances of your own development, of the environment and stuff like this. But certain things need some time.
They were searching these things and you were finding the ways to handle yourself, handle your body. You were not sick anymore. You got rid of your back pain. Yeah. What was the point you started using these methods, ideology in your coaching career? Or when you were as a physiotherapist?
Yeah,
I'm talking about coaching and physiotherapist, but does it go hand in hand? Was it the same time or time schedule? Or was there a variation?
At least in Switzerland, the coaching... I think we have to separate, in my case at least, the coaching, which the people maybe just know as a coach, is in sports.
Yeah.
But coaching can also be if you help a manager to get healthy, to get back his health, or to get basically his pain away. Coaching is a term of teaching, basically.
Yeah.
So, of course, after my sports career, my coaching sportsman, I started, as many physiotherapists do, as a classical physiotherapist or massage therapist. And there is always this combination between the classical physiotherapy or massage therapy, where you actually passively manipulate on the people, or when you actively tell the people what to do. That could be breathing, that could be exercises, strength training, nutrition, food intake, and stuff like this. So, and of course, during this period as a classical therapist, I was like thinking, okay, you do Qigong, you are supposed to show your patients some exercises, you go with them to lift weights, you don't do that at home for yourself, so something is wrong. And then, of course, I had two problems to solve. First off, I don't teach the people what I do by myself. I do the classical stuff which I was taught at school. Second, I didn't have the results I wished, because I think I realized back then this is not the right thing for me to teach the people in the classical physiotherapy. Nothing against classical physiotherapy. That's not bad or good. Some physiotherapists are extremely high level. Also with, let's say, weightlifting or Western-based exercises. But if you are not fully behind it, like I had this schizophrenia a little bit, I don't teach the people what I do, it made click in my mind. I think that was the point when I started to really have the motivation to only teach the people what I can do or do by myself at home. So that's the philosophy which I developed back then. Teach the people what you do what you teach the people. Otherwise, it's not authentic. And then I started to involve more, and I felt like I have more success and my patients have more success. And there are, of course, a lot of variations or variables why they all of a sudden had more success. It's not the art by itself. I think it's this combination of I teach them what I'm more confident in. I taught them what I have more experience with my own develop in. And the people were actually also looking for the thing which I do by myself. So that was the start. And then I integrated it more and more and more.
And you integrated it very well.
Yeah,
You're privately coaching one very high-level ski jumper, Simon Ammann.
Right.
So I guess you used, I'm not sure if you can tell what kind of methods you used, but I guess Qi Gong was one thing. What else?
Basically,
what did you work on with Simon Ammann?
Well, back then I was really specialized, basically focusing on the Qigong part. And Qigong is a combination of movements, is a combination of breathing patterns, different breathing patterns, and of course it's also having the mind involved. So basically Qigong is movement, breathing, and meditation in one pot. Actually Qigong means energy art, but you need the movements, the breathing, and the mind to make it an energy art, which the Chinese call it. And I was focusing on that at this time. So that's all I could teach. So basically, there is no secret about it anymore. I mean, he's no competition. I think he won his medal, so we can share it. So I introduced him into Qigong. Actually, I even introduced him to my own master.
Okay.
So what we taught him under the supervision of my masters at the beginning, later I did it by myself, was Qigong. That's different exercises, as I said, and breathing and focusing and visualization things. And that's what we did, Qigong. So,
okay. When you do Qigong with people, do you actually see them? You see the progress. If we talk about sports, you see the progress in sports.
Yes.
What about them as persons? You see a big change in personality or something like that?
Basically, it was maybe to come back a little bit. I think my motivation back then was rather helping my friend, Simon. I mean, we were growing up. He was a little younger. I think he's about 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
You meet each other at all those competitions. You end up coaching, you end up seeing him winning at the Olympics, and then there came this big fall down of him. You know, after the Olympics in Salt Lake City, he didn't do very well, so he started to go down 4 years, when he came to the point, I think it was at the Olympics in Torino in Italy, when he was like a mess. So my first motivation was rather helping the person, because I saw the things, not only his performance, but also the whole environment and surrounding what he, and which challenges he faced at this time. You have a manager, you have the sponsors, you have to run there, you have less sleep, you cannot train with the team. You know, a person, when he or she wins a gold medal, is a different person after those gold medals. So he went not only physically by performance down, he went down also like being ripped out of a team and of his natural surrounding a little bit, from what I could observe as a coach. So my ambition was more like also to help him as a person, whether or not he finds back to the success, to the road of success, is another matter. And that was basically my mindset. And I think that was the reason of my mindset was because was the start that he trusted me. I said, like, I don't care what you want to achieve at the moment. Like, do you think something is missing? So I talked with him, and of course the start why you do something, or this passion, this fire, it was not there anymore. You know, when you go for something which you loved in the past, but you just do it because you have to do it, the fire, the energy is not back. So why does someone ski jump? Because if you take off, you get incredible feelings which no one else in the world will feel the way you do. And you can do whatever, but you will not feel it like in ski jumping. This is very special. I think that's the reason why the people ski jump, right? So I brought him back to, we must get to the stage where we really get back this feeling. I do the ski jumping because I love it. So we need to fix your physics and your emotions and your mental state first, and then we'll see how it ends. And it ended up quite good. We were on the right track. But that was the start, that he trusted me. And we know that whether you're a coach, whether you are a therapist, this trust of the people, this convergence, this energy between two people is the start of whether the workout will be successful or not. And that was my first concern, his health. And we made him healthy first. And then the rest was side effect.
Yeah. What is real success? What do you think? People always talk about success, and it's many times it is about money, about wealth, about big houses and cars, and this is what people think about as success.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, at least nowadays, success is how you feel yourself. I think successful person is the person that is enjoying his life or her life and feels well in or her body. What do you think about the word success?
It has many different meanings, but I'm more on the line with you that someone can be successful without a big house, without a big car,
gold medals.
Gold medals. It's just a definition of how you define success. So this is the identification with something. I think that's very important. Some people identify themselves that success is climbing up the career in a bank or in an insurance or having one house, or rather having two houses. So this is, I think, if you want to find out what success is, you have to find out with what you identify yourself. Some people may identify themselves with the job. So most probably, every success they feel inside is related to their job. And if something is happening not related to the job, it may feel pleasant, but it's not considered to be successful. So someone identifies himself with a lot of money. So he's only happy when he has a lot of money and getting more money. So we have a different approach because of various reasons. It doesn't matter even why or what the reasons are. We identify maybe our success with having a good health first, or with having healthy children. Or for us, maybe it's more successful to go home after even a hard working day to still have some energy to play with the kids and not just telling them to leave and watch 2 more hours of TV to relax. So I think success can be, and this is very individual. This is something which I don't want to judge. Of course, for me, being healthy is more successful. Someone who is healthy is more successful than someone who is sick, taking a lot of drugs, and is a multimillionaire. So, but still, I don't want to judge. I think that's very individual and very personal. But for me, success is having good health. For me, health is not only the physical health, but also the emotional health and the mental health. For me, success is that the little things in life can make you happy. For me, even going one step further, success is when you sit in the bus, it's foggy, it's raining, the bus is fully crowded, everyone is coughing, and you just have this sense of joy because everything is just good. And you don't even know why it's good. You just feel good. That's success for me. Success is also when I can inspire people, when I can help people. It feels just successful. There are many things, but it's more like the mundane things which makes me feeling success. Or my definition of success is, being recognized as a nice person. That's also a success for me. If the people say like, hey, this Swiss guy is quite a nice guy. I think I don't know him, but he looks sympathetic. It's also a kind of success.
Have you seen any culture difference? Because you've been traveling in the Eastern part. Yeah. You have the Eastern part.
Yes.
Eastern culture masters.
Yeah.
If you compare it to the Western world, have you seen difference?
Oh yeah, there are huge difference even nowadays. Well, I even would consider that in Switzerland we have a much different culture than in Finland, although they are considered as twin brothers or sisters within Europe, because we are very similar, Swiss and Finnish, within Europe, because an Italian would say like, those Finnish and Swiss, they are completely culturally different than us. But of course, Europe, Asia, in Europe, often, I would say, things are put on the table and discussed. In Asia, you have often a culture where you just don't talk about some things. In Asia, at least in this group of culture I went in, and that's very, very traditional, they still stick on these hierarchy levels. So it's very important that, for example, the master is the first who leaves the room and he's the last who comes into the room. He's never the one waiting for the students. He's always the one coming maybe 1 or 2 hours late and leaving when maybe the people are still training. Right. The master or the elderly people, I would say, from the cultural aspect, not only divided in masters and students, but also in elderly people, grandfathers and children, and grandchildren. The eldest one, the grandfather or the grandmother, they always get the food first, always, and also the drinks, and the people serve them. And usually it's always the youngest who serves, who is able to serve. Of course, not a 2-year-old child would serve the grandfather, but the youngest who is able to serve the grandfather, that he would do that. No exception. Often you are not quite sure when it comes to the eastern part of the world whether the people really mean what they say or whether it's a test. Often I honestly was there like, was it now a joke? Is it not a joke? Is it now funny or is it not funny? Shall you laugh? Shall you not laugh? Does he mean that now ironically or not? So you are for a long time not quite sure. And often the people would smile even though nothing is to smile because they are just polite. This is also part of the culture, whereas here in Europe, in Finland, maybe sometimes you say like, no, I don't feel well. No, that was not nice what you said. More direct approach. Yeah. Where you have in the Eastern world a little bit of the indirect approach. But what is nice is, of course, that once a master or the people like you are basically really into their family. And they love to invite. They love to gather. They are not so much into we do the things alone, we sit in our apartment and enjoy, and maybe the auntie is coming once a year. They really gather the people as much as they can. So the family living is very important there. This is also a very different approach of what we see in Western world.
Before you actually found your master, you were searching your master. Did you bump in the wall this culture difference or anything before that? Did you try to find a master and they didn't accept you? You come from Europe, you are a different looking guy than we are. Right. We don't take you to our culture, we don't share our secrets. Did you find this?
When I was basically traveling, I found this, of course, a lot. The Chinese, especially, in this kind, or when it comes to sharing an art, a national treasure, they are very, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but a kind of racists. So first off, of course, you are not a Chinese, so we don't teach you. So the next step is you are not speaking Mandarin, so we don't teach you. Mandarin is also a Chinese dialect, or a Chinese language, actually. You are not coming from this part, you are not engaged with this part, so it's quite tough. But I was lucky that when I was traveling, I met several of those masters, but I didn't care so much about it. So the one master I met straight on said and gave me the feeling, not only talk to me, but gave me the feeling that he's open to share everything, not depending on the race, culture, and the religious background. And that was something which clicked. That's what you normally don't see in the Chinese culture. Normally, Chinese only teach back then, at least. I don't know how it is now. It's a little more open, but still you find those kind of attitudes. Chinese only teach Chinese. And you need to be very special. And in the past, at least, you needed to live a long, long time, or serve even a long, long time, your future teacher, until he accepted you as a student. So in this case, I was very lucky, because it was always my philosophy that I like the people irrespective of the race, the culture, or their religious background. I mean, that does not matter. I watch the person. If I like the person, it's fine for me, no matter what she or he believes in. And that kind of master I found. So maybe I attracted to the right time the person, the Chinese person, being open to teach the arts irrespective of whatever. And but of course he would tell me a lot of stories where, for example, he ended up in having attacks, physical attacks, because he started to open himself to Western students to teach them. I remember clearly one story when he told me he's living in Malaysia, northern part of Malaysia, very close to Penang, and Penang is a multicultural island. So when he first started to teach to non-Chinese, and that was back then Malaysians, Indian Malaysians. So they said, like, how can you do that? This is a disgrace to our culture. This is a disgrace to your masters. And you get problems. And he was actually even, like, challenged. Until he said, like, well, do you know where Kung Fu is coming from? And then I said, like, well, of course, from Chinese. Then I said, like, yeah, but it was an Indian monk who brought the art to the Chinese. So don't tell me about you're a disgrace or it's just for Chinese. A non-Chinese brought the art to China. So, well, it happened a lot, but luckily not for me so much.
Yeah. That's good. What's this guy called Richard Bustillo?
Yes, that's my second master.
That's who was the first one?
That's Wong Q Kit.
Oh, the first one was Wong Q Kit.
Yes.
Okay. Well, he still is on this planet Earth.
He's still on this planet Earth, yes. He's still alive.
What was he teaching to you?
He taught me first Qigong, then Kung Fu, and then the Taijiquan. That's a style of Kung Fu. And later on, meditation. Normally, in the real traditional way, you would start straight with Kung Fu, end up with meditation. So now, because martial art back then was not so popular, especially Chinese martial arts was not so popular back then, he would focus more on Qigong. And as I was searching for Qigong practice, of course I found him as a Qigong teacher, until he told me I'm also teaching Kung Fu. Then I said, like, well, yeah, let's see. And then later on, I would find out, and of course he would show me that he's really also into Kung Fu, and then I did the Kung Fu, and then later on the meditation.
Can you tell me more about Kung Fu?
Yeah.
Because what I know Kung Fu, and what a lot of people know, especially here in Western countries, that we have seen those Kung Fu movies, but that's about it. What is really Kung Fu?
Well, actually, I was like you. I did not even know that Qigong and Kung Fu are related back then. I had no clue about that. For me, Bruce Lee was the hero. Of course, we saw, or at least many of us saw his movies. And Jackie Chan, and I had this imprint of Kung Fu. And some of the things are actually really true, but some of the things are not true. And I had to find out. And I found it out. So basically, in traditional Kung Fu, you don't start with fighting. You start with a hardcore training on the physical level. So you go into positions, stand there for minutes, sometimes for hours, and you have to do really some weird things which are not connected to your idea of what is Kung Fu. Because when you see Kung Fu, you see someone punching another one or kicking another one.
Fast.
And fast. And not just staying there in a weird position for half an hour or more. And that's what I learned. I learned the traditional way of Shaolin Kung Fu. That means you build a foundation. And that means you go through physical tests and physical conditions. And only later on, the masters would show you specific techniques. But only techniques at the beginning. Yeah. You don't know how to use this technique. It's just a technique. And later on, he combines 3, 4, 5 techniques. But you just know the techniques. You don't know why or how to apply them. Why you use it or how to apply it. And only later, when he tested you enough, especially your moral constitution, then he shows you the application of the things. Why you do this. Why you grip someone in a certain way. Why you punch someone in a certain way. So the traditional approach is first, I test you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The Chinese have this expression, spiritually, which means more the spirit of a person. And later on, he shows you how to fight. But only for self-defense. So the moral foundation is very important into Kung Fu. So it's not at all of most what we see. Someone finds a master's, 5 years later, he fights.
Yeah.
Often it's, you find a master, you train, and later on it leads to the fact that you are better in fighting combat skills.
Well, obviously you passed the test. How long did it take for you to be in the level that you were taught to do self-defense?
It took me with Kung Fu especially, it took me a long time. I would say to really feel comfortable to defend myself, it took me about 5 years. Yeah, at least. Because there was no something or not so much of fighting and with various people. It was really the traditional way you do that, which seemingly not really had something to do with the fighting. And when I got introduced into specific techniques, it took me along to realize how and when to apply them. So it took me at least 5 years to be confident. And as a comparison, most probably when you go for a boxing school, you end up feeling more confident and feeling more in a secure situation after, I would say, like they're pretty fast. They come to the point like after 1 year, because that's what you learn in boxing. You learn how to box. And in Kung Fu, you don't learn Kung Fu at the beginning. Yeah. You learn the deepest Kung Fu, but you don't know that it's Kung Fu.
Energy arts. I was interviewing this one man from Mexico, and he's doing this Systema, Russian martial arts. Right. And there's a different combination of that, and he told me that he doesn't really like the Russian style. Yeah. Not all his grandmaster is Russian, but most of the videos or whatever you see, it's too intense and people are trying to hurt each other. But this man from Mexico, Josafat Herrera, a nice guy, and as I went to his seminar, and he was actually sensing the anger and the fear and everything amongst us, even though he wasn't able to see us.
Right.
Is this part of Kung Fu as well?
Well, it's not part of the traditional training, but of course there are legends, there are even direct experiences with such happenings, that of course it goes beyond the physical, let's say, appearance. You train in Kung Fu, in any martial art who is advanced. Let's put away the sports, the art, which you find maybe not only in China, in Shaolin Kung Fu, but also in Russian martial arts and stuff like this. You train the body, the energy and the mind. And as a natural result, not only your body gets better and faster and stronger, but your energy gets more and more and more. So you are capable to do things better or more intense, faster, longer than others. Furthermore, the mind becomes more sharp, more clear, more expanded, more aware of what the people may know as words more, awareness, sensations, and stuff like this. And I don't know where it can lead, where is the limit? But of course, in Shaolin Kung Fu, there are masters or were masters who can sense the opponent's moves before they actually happened. Similarly to the person you mentioned previously, there are Shaolin masters who can sense the things behind their back. Furthermore, not only the physical things, but the emotional state of an opponent. So there are masters I got to know who can feel what you feel. They can sense what you feel. Before you move, not even blink with the eye, they can see what's coming. So what is it? It is an energy and mind dimension. And I didn't believe in that until I experienced it. Just to say, I'm educated like you from the Western medicine, going through the Western biology, nothing having, no having any interest in mystics or esoterics. Of course, I stand with both feet on my ground, but of course, I also experienced the real stuff there. And there are some people who are very powerful in this matter.
Yeah. I saw it first time 1 year ago, and I'm like, man, what is this thing? And before that, I wasn't believing in anything like this. My sort of this journey of more finding myself and my maybe spiritual self, or whatever you call it, started just a little bit over a year ago.
Yeah,
so I'm very in the beginning of this path. But there I realized this was one step, was the seminar in the, what Josefas Herrera was having. And there I realized that because he was able to make people also sense things that they couldn't even imagine right away at the beginning. And I was like, oh, okay, there's way more potential in us than we actually believe.
Yes.
It's very interesting. Okay, you had this first master.
Yes.
And then what made you find another one?
That's by accident. When you are in the martial arts, you get to know people. And one of my closest connection is Grandmaster in Frankfurt, in Germany. It's Kai Uwe Jetkant. And I knew he practiced martial arts, 5 different styles of martial arts, before he met the same masters I did, or the same master Shaolin Kung Fu masters I did. And he did Jeet Kune Do, he did Silat, Malaysian Indonesian martial art, he did Jiu-Jitsu, he did a couple of martial arts and mastered them. And of course, obviously, through our good connection, I would visit him regularly back then when I was still living in Switzerland. It's a 4 hours drive, 5 hours drive. And then he said like, yeah, you're such a cool guy. You should meet my other masters too. And it happened that I think a few months later, he really went to Frankfurt. So I ended up like meeting Richard, Sigung Richard. And then, I trained also under him. And it was not because I was missing something or because I was like having a need for trophies of masters I meet. It was by accident and by happening. And when I saw or met Richard for the first time, I knew that's the thing I need for my further development. And that's the person who can help me a lot in my further progress, and not having something missed, adding something, but here as a person, he was the one who could push me a little in certain aspects further up.
Did he have different style of teaching than the first master? I don't remember his name, so that's why I just say
it's so complicated.
First master.
Master 1 and Master 2.
Yeah,
they have a lot of in common, and they are of course very different because of their background. So he was of course more focused on the fighting, on the combat, on the self-defense, and you could also see that. I would say like he was a little bit of more intense.
Yeah.
You could feel his spirit was more engaged over the years into the real fighting. And the Shaolin Master had the same kind of, but it was different in some ways, because that was not his main approach, or let us put it more it was not his focus. While Richard, the second one, was really into martial arts and only martial arts. The first master, Shaolin Master, was also into philosophy and into energy arts and meditation. And that was the core difference. And basically the core they had in common. Their main idea, whether it's martial art or not, is to use it to become a better person first, then defending yourself. Then you should defend yourself, but only defend yourself when there is no other chance. That was crucial for both. If you can change the road when you see the trouble is coming, you change the road. If you can have a good word to de-escalate the situation, you use the calm word to do that. If you can use an apology to make the people more calm instead of pushing their aggression up, you use that apology. You should be always kind. And even if you have to fight after all those steps, try to be compassionate. So, and that was the main core, the core of both philosophies. So the second one was very much more into the fighting than the first one. And the second one was also into professional fighting. And he taught also top boxers. He was first generation Bruce Lee. Then Inosanto was his classmate. If you're just interested in those martial arts, that are the real guys. They went to the cage fighting. They went to the mixed martial arts, or his students at least. So that's the real guys. Whether at the same time, my Shaolin coach didn't push this kind of teaching. If someone was very good in fighting, he was happy. But if someone would be able to defend himself and at the same time having a family and a good life as a physiotherapist, he was happy too. So that's the core difference between those two.
Richard Bustillo, a master of Kung Fu, but he was taught by Bruce Lee himself.
Yes, actually Richard was taught in many different styles. I think back then when he was still living in Hawaii, he was introduced into karate, into many different martial arts. And I don't know exactly how the stories goes or remember exactly, but of course at some point all the martial art guys back then would either meet up in, also because of the jobs, meet up in San Francisco or Los Angeles or somewhere else. And for some reason, I don't actually know exactly when and where they met. He became a student first generation student of Bruce Lee, yes.
So this is actually that you have been as close to Bruce Lee as possible, because Bruce Lee died already 74.
Yeah, right.
So you were not able to meet him as a person, but now you're being there. The first step.
Yeah, of course. When Kai told me, hey, Richard is here, I think 2 minutes later I was in the car driving up. Of course, I didn't want to miss this opportunity. Not even just because I wanted to learn from him, just meeting him. And the fact that I could learn later from him was, of course, a great privilege. And I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, of course, the lineage is not too far away to Bruce Lee in person. But on the other hand, of course, also Richard and all the students back then, Inosanto is also a name which the people should know when they talk about first generation of Bruce Lee, Taki Takamura and stuff like this. There is the first bunch of real guys who trained under the Bruce, because basically they were just training partners and later they become students of Bruce Lee. And Yeah, of course it makes you privileged, but the people should know that those guys didn't have much time to train under Bruce, as he obviously passed so young age. But they continue to teach his spirit, and obviously all of them could keep a lot of the essence of the original art which Bruce Lee taught them.
How did you go with the masters? You were studying with the masters. How did it go? Did you spend a lot of time in the same place, or did you just meet up occasionally? What was the case?
Basically, when I was traveling on my first Southeastern Asia trip, then I spent some more time. But normally, that's the modern way also for the Chinese masters. You make an appointment and you meet up at a certain spot, at a certain place, at a certain facility, and then you train. And often it's like 1 day, 2 day, a weekend. Sometimes it's 1 or 2 weeks. It's about 2, 3, 4, 5. It depends. Times per year where you meet. And then you are not only going to training, but you often spend also the private time with those people. So you go for the breakfast with them. Maybe sometimes you go for the lunch, and then you travel around with them. So you get to know them also personally, yes. And with both masters or teachers, both of them would share many of the secrets, especially when it comes to the martial art and the energy arts and the mind level of the energy arts. They would share their secrets while having a tea or a beer or food, and not while being in the class.
Okay. So it's good to hang out with them.
It's good to hang out with them. They are inspirational. I think many people would agree with such people who have the experience to meet such people. They would inspire you not only because they are well known for their martial art capacity and skills, but also because they are very nice people and persons. So they inspire you as being nice persons, and you want to also be as a nice person as possible. Like they inspire you as people. Of course, they have to teach you something specifically, but a good teacher, in my opinion, after I met two, should inspire you completely. Yeah.
Wong Kiev Kid.
Yeah.
There's a sort of legend I read that there should be this southern Shaolin monastery.
Yes.
Do you know about it? Because Wikipedia, anybody can write there, but it was said like it's a mystery. Does it really exist?
Yeah, this is always with the Chinese. You know, they never know. Actually, with a lot of legends. I think even in Eastern Europe, we have those Christian legends where you don't know whether they existed or not. It does not so much matter, but the legend goes as that, of course, that's a historical fact, which even the Chinese people read about and know about and also believe in, is that you have the first northern Shaolin temple in the province of Henan, and this was burned down. So a few masters would flee out of this northern burnt Shaolin temple into the south. And now the legends start. One legend goes there was one further southern Shaolin temple, and another legend goes as there were two more southern Shaolin temples. So in the south there was another temple, it was burnt again. So a second temple would be built up. And the other legend is that there is a southern temple and it was burned, and that's the end. And according to my master's knowledge, and that's just the oral transmission he got from his own master and from the master of his master, is that there were actually two southern Shaolin temples. And when the one was burned down, hiddenly, somewhere in the sequence, there was a second one built. And at the end, this one was also attacked. So I guess, meanwhile, even at least one of the southern Shaolin temple is acknowledged by the Chinese, because they just found archaeological rudimentary leftovers of the temple. Because of the jungle that goes very fast. When something is burnt down, within 1 or 2 years you don't see anything anymore, as nothing would ever have existed. There is some, at least that's the last info I got, some findings there. So for me, it does not so much matter. More important is that the art by itself is kept alive. So, yeah.
I think it needs to be a little bit mystical as well.
Yeah, otherwise the Chinese don't have so much tourist attractions, right? But of course, you know, there is in anything, there is a mystical aspect. And I think, of course, it would be nice, in fact, to really know that it existed. But at the end, there are so many factors, whether it keeps mystery or not. We focus on what we have, and I guess at least the arts passed, so that's more important.
So we were taught by two great masters now on your path, and finally you actually became a Shaolin master yourself. Can you tell me more about this?
It was absolutely informal. Normally you go to a school, you pass the tests, you get your exams, that's it. That's the normal way. And that was not the case in this development. I trained, I got my success. I started to incorporate the energy art, the Qigong, the movements, the breathing, the mindset with my own clients in the coaching. I continued until at some point my master came to me at a breakfast and said like, yeah, that's it. You're considered to be a master. That's it. It was absolutely informal, but, you know, he knew what he did, obviously. And they have a lot of tests, those Chinese, which they can refer to whether someone is ready or not. But it was nothing special, as if you mention Shaolin Master, blah, blah, blah. For me, it's not really that important. And actually, it happened like this. Yeah, you have achieved this level now. That's it. Yeah, okay, let's drink a tea, let's go for a walk, or let's go for some training. That's it.
But you were tested enough, I guess.
I was tested enough.
Many years enough.
I was tested many years, and what I didn't know back then, my master tested me with breaking bricks, for example. That was an obvious test, but I didn't know where it leads. So you have bricks which you place among each other, above each other, and then either you try to break all of them, a couple of them, one of them, or what was one test was we had two bricks on each other, and we just touched the first brick. There was some physical contact, but the first brick didn't break, but the second it break. So that was a test. Another test was putting a bamboo wooden stick onto eggs or sugar cane, and then just break it without breaking the eggs, which supported. That was a test too. So they had their tests, of course. But for you as a person, it's like, yeah, I have accomplished for what I was training. So there were some couple of tests which we had to pass, or which I'm not the only one. We had a couple of brothers and sisters doing this Kung Fu, but of course he had his tests. But as I told you, when he said like, yeah, let's go for a drink, that's it. And nothing big here, spectacular. It was rather, like, let's go for a drink.
No firecrackers, Chinese ones.
No firecrackers. I think he didn't even was showing any emotion. It was like, I think he even had something in his mouth while telling it. Like, it was like more like, yeah, you're ready. Okay, good.
All right, that's it.
Yeah. With the Richard Bustillo, it was a little more formal. Maybe because it's American, very much American influenced. It was very formal that you achieved this, so you got this certification, you achieved that, and you got this certification. And that was often done at the end of a training seminar.
Okay. Your start, I believe, now when you told me that you met these Austrian people and you started walking in the morning and breathing.
Yes.
Tell me more about breathing. How does it really affect people?
Oh, well, that's the first thing you do in life.
Yeah, of course.
And most probably, when you end up breathing, that's the last thing you do in life.
Yes.
So it has a huge impact. And of course, I knew when I studied about the importance of breathing. But back then it was more because of the interest basically of physiology, and basically also because you needed to know some chemical compounds which are exchanged that someone is alive and not, more in pathology and stuff like this. Back then there was not such a hype that, wow, now vegetative system, you can change your autoimmune system. But of course I would figure out by myself through direct experience when I did specific breathing exercises, something is changing. And not only physically, but also emotionally and mentally, something is completely changing. And breathing is a very great tool. And actually it's when I take all what I could learn from all those nice, very nice, inspiring people, breathing is basically the most fundamental and most simple thing anyone could do. Even at your age of 90, you could just train a little bit of your breathing and you have a huge impact into your systems.
So you're saying it doesn't take a long time to get the impact?
No, just breathe.
Just breathe.
Simple. It's just simple. Of course, it would be good if you could know a specific breathing pattern. There are a couple of thousands of ways of how you could breathe. And it would be nice if you have maybe something to hold on. There is this 4-8-7 breathing, 2-2-4 breathing, breathing in through your nose, breathing out through your mouth. But basically breathing stays very, very, very simple. But of course you can have different things according to your aims and objectives.
What was your first expression? What was did you have now you mentioned about some techniques.
Yeah.
Were you taught with some techniques?
Yeah.
When you started to find out that, oh, this really helps me?
Yes, of course. I was like, the first time I really got into the breathing, I forgot about the breathing. That was most probably something of the most intense feelings I've ever had. You focus on your breathing, you manipulate your breathing, and all of a sudden you forget about your breathing and you get the feeling you don't even breathe anymore.
Okay.
So that was and of course it was very, very intense in terms of, because I was not thinking about energy, about dimensions, about nothing at all. I just knew breathing is good. Now do it in a certain way. And I did it. And I had this huge experience and I thought like something must be really profound and deep in breathing.
Does this go hand in hand with meditation?
Oh yeah. Breathing is one way how to meditate. Meditation is basically training your mind, your spirit, your awareness. And breathing is one good way, not the only one, but one very good and simple way to train your mind or to meditate.
You told me you were practicing in these positions in Kung Fu, and
Yeah,
it was
right.
surprising for you. So I guess you had to be in silence for long times. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's what I actually did. I went somewhere out of the village when I did my training, or even when we trained together. We went out into the forest or a nice place. At the beginning, at least, when your mind has to focus, learn how to focus, being a little outside of the crowd. And then you were a lot of time in certain position for a certain amount of time, trying to keep your mind still, in the stillness.
How difficult was that?
That was
at the beginning.
Pretty much difficult. That was, I think, being able to tame your mind is one of the great things you can do, but also one of the most like challenging things. It's simple but not easy. Actually, the process or the whole techniques and all this stuff is simple, but it's not easy. So that's taming the mind is for sure one of the biggest tasks. But of course you learn to grow, and all of a sudden you learn about your mistake you did in the past. So looking back, of course, I would say like it was very difficult, but being now the person I am looking back, yeah, it was not that difficult because you made a lot of mistakes.
How is it nowadays? Is it easy to tame your mind? Can you do it like this?
It is easy. Oh.
Yeah. You've been practicing a lot.
Yeah. This is a lifelong process and it's done every day. So for those who think like, yeah, you just get a tool, now I'm focused. Yes, some people can do so, but it needs some effort. For example, people just try to focus their mind when they are in a meditative state or when they actually do the meditation. So they close the door, they meditate, they try to focus, they get focused, and the rest of the day, they are not focused. So I think the secret or one of the tricks is to apply in daily life, basically the same thing what you train privately. So to bring back the focus whenever possible. And that can be in a bus, in a metro. There are so many easy ways, not simple, but not easy, ways to always bring your mind back. And being aware of the things is for sure or most probably one of the most important things. So if you are more aware, and that's what meditation trains, then you know, okay, I'm emotionally disbalanced, too many thoughts in my mind, so you know how to shut down and come back. So you always go back and maybe you lose yourself again and then you come back. And the more you do it, the more it's like walking. The more you walk, the better you walk. The more you breathe, the better you breathe. The more you tame your mind and focus your mind, the better it gets.
So being present is important.
Yes.
Being in the present moment. I think, and I know for sure from my own experience that I live in the past and I live in the future, but forget about being present, being in this moment right now, sitting with you. Is this big part of the meditative
being in the
state?
here and now, what most of the people call it, that's for sure a good start. Of course, sometimes it's good for some processes to analyze what happened in the past, but at some point you just use it to improve, in order to not make the same mistakes, for example, or in order to improve something. But of course, jumping always into the past will hold you back to be focused, because then you're not focused. Because you end up, oh, this happened and that and why this happened and could I and if I did this, you are you are not focused at all. Your mind wanders. So the chance that in the past the mind wanders much, much more than in the present lies on the hand. The same goes for the future. What happens if I do this, if I do that? So to tame your mind, that's another way. Breathing is one way, is to be aware of the here and now, is to bring the mind actually to the situation you are into the presence, in the here and now.
Okay. About part of Shaolin Master and Shaolin arts, energy arts, is this Zen. Can you explain this Zen? What it actually means?
It means nothing.
It means nothing.
That's it.
Okay.
No, basically Zen is just part of the tradition in the past. You had this development of the Shaolin monastery, which was Buddhist, and a specific branch of the Buddhism was the Zen. Okay. And that was basically introduced to China, to Shaolin, through Bodhidharma or Dalmo, who was an Indian prince traveling from India to China to bring Zen. Okay. And Zen, this is the sudden approach The people should maybe know what it's about in Buddhism. In Buddhism is developing, and then and so on, achieving the enlightenment. And enlightenment means nothing and everything. And it doesn't mean a heaven. So we in Europe know about the earth and the heaven. So it's jumping beyond the heaven. No heaven at all. Okay. Nothing. So the Buddhists believe that you can go to the heavens like we do. And at some point they are on the stage to let go completely. Okay. Be nothing and anything.
That's Zen.
That's Zen. Now, the traditional Buddhists have a lot of stages, and there are also a lot of branches in those Buddhistics. So some Buddhistic branches look at it as stages, and then you are there. And some people believe in more than one life, and then you are there. So some people believe in the same person in the same life, but stages from heaven to heaven. And then some people think you have to change and transform, and then you end up there until you are ready. And the Zen is in here and now. Now, up.
Okay.
Or no, not up. Left away. And that was a revolution. Because Bodhidharma, that's interesting for the people, was the first one in Buddhism, or at least who was mentioned by texts, who was considering the body, the physical body, which is interesting for us, as the temple of the soul. Mm. While most Indian-influenced and Buddhist-influenced, Chinese Buddhist, Indian Buddhist, influenced religions, also the Tibetan, regarded the body as a dirty vehicle. The soul is just there to grow, and then he leaves the dirt and goes to another one, and until he reached. And the Bodhidharma said, no. You have to take care of your temple. Make your house clean, and then the spirit feels well. And that was a revolution. I mean, he was a revolutionary on that. Also that someone can, in the here and now, if he's ready, reach this level was, many people say like you need at least 49, 100, whatever. I'm not so much into this. Yeah. Lifetimes until you reached this stage. Yeah. He said like, no, it's here and now, Doc.
Okay. More simple.
Simple. That's basically the hallmark of Zen. Simple, direct, effective. And the dimensions which they talk about is, first, you need to tame your mind. Getting focused. Learning how to get focused. Getting from 100 thoughts to 1 thought. Minimize from 1,000 to 1. Now, as you are in 1, you can strengthen yourself to keep 1. That's the second stage. Strengthening and nourishing on 1. Okay, you get distracted, come back. Distracted, come back. Mind wanders, come back, come back. The more you do, the more strong you can keep your focus on 1. And then you get 0. And that's the Zen approach.
Okay. That's Zen. Then there were more. There were Tai Chi, or actually Taijiquan. Say it correct, I can say.
Yeah, Taijiquan is, Tai Chi means cosmos, and Chuan means fist. Referring in Chinese, it's a martial art. So Taijiquan means Cosmos Kung Fu, Cosmos martial art. And Tai Chi was basically in the past not mentioned as name as we know it now as Tai Chi. So that was a new creation. I don't know how many decades or how many years it's back until the name Taijiquan was established. But Taijiquan as a martial art, the spirit of this martial art, was already in the 13th century existing. And the one who developed this was a well-known Shaolin master who has been training in the Shaolin monastery, but he was a Taoist priest. So the Chinese have Buddhists, Christian, Muslim, Taoist priest. And after some time, after he graduated, he left for the Wudang Mountains. That's a famous, another famous monastery region to cultivate further. And up there he developed his style of martial arts, which has been called later Taijiquan. I think at the beginning they called it even Shaolin Wudang Kung Fu, and then it became Wudang Kung Fu, and then later it became Taijiquan. But that's not important. He had a certain way how to develop his own style of martial art. And he was, as far as I know, the first, also a pioneer, a revolutionary, who developed a martial art who includes breathing exercises, Qigong, and Zen. Meditation, martial art, energy art in one package. While the Shaolin, that's also how I was trained. Yeah. First Kung Fu, then Qigong. In my case, it was Qigong, Kung Fu, but traditionally, Kung Fu, Qigong, meditation, separated.
Yeah.
And he developed an art which was complex.
Okay. How do you use now when you're teaching people? Do you use it as complex? Is it all combined together, or do you separate the different parts?
No, I give the people the best. If you separate it, you leave them spending a lot of time and not wasting their time. Everyone needs certain things to develop. In my case, I needed this separation, or it was just part of the tradition. Nowadays, you try to include everything to one package.
And this is what you do. You have your own company, Energy.
Right.
And so you teach people this, the whole experience you've had so far. So now you're giving it away.
Yes.
Right.
And I try to incorporate everything.
Are you doing it here in Finland as well, or?
Not yet, because in 2016, back then, April, I moved with my wife and my kids to Finland. And then I focused on different things. I focused on hand over my two schools in Bern and Zurich in Switzerland to my most advanced or most senior students. So I had to take care that everything runs smooth, had to fly back once a while to check. Then I also, of course, used my time to get to know a little bit of Helsinki more. Mm-hmm. So the region of Herttoniemi where we live, I had a few walks, and of course, as my kids went to Päiväkoti, I wanted to also know what they talk when they come back home. So I focused more on getting some knowledge and skills about the language. But of course, now as we are here and everything has settled, I'm of course thinking of sharing some of my experience and knowledge also in Helsinki or in Finland in general.
Was it difficult to let go your spots in Switzerland and your home country to come all the way to Finland?
It was not only easy, of course. I have my family there. I have my students there. I built something up there, of course, and then I left. But looking back, I didn't have any time to stick too much on it because it went so fast. Within 3 months, we were here. And then we had to go our lives. We had to continue. My wife had a job. I took care of my kids. I, of course, also took care of our house or our apartment. And yeah, it's not always easy to let go. But I think my training helped me to let go quite good. And the people can come and visit me in Finland, or sometimes I get like the chance to go down. So I didn't have to really let go something. It's still there.
Did you get some advices from your master?
Yeah, that was very inspiring because I was, back then, it was early 2016, from Richard Bustillo, my second master, who is specialized in his name more in the self-defense martial arts, but as I told, also a great teacher, as a inspiring person and teacher in private. And of course, when we decided to move, or when I figured out we have no other choice than to move to make our life situation more comfortable back then, yeah, I was of course worried, and I didn't know because there were so many obstacles, like leaving my two schools, my Kung Fu schools back then, left. How to do with the insurances, how to do with bringing our apartment to Finland. Is everything working? Can we afford it? Do we find an apartment in Helsinki? How do we do it as having no job? My wife didn't have a job back then in Finland. Who takes or gives you an apartment when you don't have a job? Having maybe an application in my land at the same time for a job in Finland, my wife. So that was tricky. Many obstacles. And then I had to say, because I was like organizing my course with Richard later the year, or we planned to organize a course, Richard, like I have to say, it's like we have to go. And I explained him the situation. And he was very nice. And his answer to my explanations and my cancellation to the course was very surprising. And yeah, he gave me a lot of, deep knowledge and wisdom. So he helped me a lot out. He just basically said, like, at the beginning he gave me the trust that what I do is correct, looking after my family, taking care of my family first, checking that everything is smooth, that the kids are well, is very much important. So he motivated me and told me, promoted basically, that looking after family is very good, because without a family and without health, a man has nothing, or a wife or a woman has nothing. So he made clear, this is good what you do. You don't have to worry about this course which we organize, martial arts at all. This comes later. It will fix. So just focus now on family and things. And if your wife and your heart like melt together, the obstacles will disappear. So that's basically what he told me. And it happened like this. I remember clearly I was walking at the lake of Zurich. Where to start? Shall I quit now the apartment? Because then we really don't have. And that's what I actually did. The first thing I did, I got his message. I quit the apartment. No, there is no turning back.
That was it.
That was it.
I guess we all need some kind of master to help us out at some point. Even though you've been developing your mindset in my eyes, in high level.
Right.
But still, there's occasionally, there are doubts. So it's good to have somebody to reach out for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's how we grew up. Or it's always good to have someone. That's why I motivate the people to share the things, because it starts with us. It starts with your friends. It starts with maybe friends in Helsinki. It starts with the world. If we all help out a little more to each other, we don't have this mess, or such a mess. So it starts with the little things. And of course, humans are. We all are. That's at least my experience and my opinion. We are more comfortable with good friends. That can be your brother. It can be more close in your family, your father also, your grandfather. It can be a good friend. It can be a friend in Africa. It can be a friend in Malaysia. It's always good to have someone who inspires you, who shows you maybe a different perspective of how you see the things, how you perceive the things. And it can be a master who gives you this perspective, or it can be a good friend, or it can be your sister or your father, or a teacher, any other teacher, language teacher, who gives you the right information at the right time. That's why we should connect with the people and share the things instead of locking. No, I don't share. Because at the end, it makes much more fun to walk the road down with a couple of good buddies than alone.
That's true. So eyes wide open and observing and listening to people.
Yeah, listening to the people, having, and taking care of the things, of the people, of course, also. Inviting them for a dinner is quite common in Switzerland. just enjoy what you have. Even a phone call sometimes, or nowadays a short text. Hey, how about you? How are you? Can help. Of course, you have to do a lot of things by yourself. But as I told you, many people can be inspirational and help you to see things which you can't see at the moment because of whatever reasons. So that's why be open, be kind to the people. That's my life, how I wish to live it. And I found already quite a good bunches of friends here in Finland and Helsinki too. So it just makes more fun when I'm around people, when I meet good people and share the energy a little bit. But of course, sometimes I need to go to my forest in Herttoniemi, Ranta, and then meditate or do whatever alone.
You're developing yourself all the time.
Yeah.
In 2016, I believe you started doing scalp acupuncture.
Yes.
What does it really? I mean, I know acupuncture, needles, things. I've done some dry needling, a little bit, not much yet. I'm not any good at it, but I've been trying at least, and somebody's been teaching me a little bit. But this is something different. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is very different. I didn't want to, after all I studied, further education here, further education there, I didn't want to make a full-time education anymore. Because of my kids, of my family, at some point, you don't want to sit 4 years in a school. So I checked further educations, and of course acupuncture was always in my interest because of the Qigong, the energy art, the Chinese. There is a connection, herbs. Acupuncture was these things which interest me the most. But of course, any education you check is like very, very long and very profound. And I didn't want to take my time for that. So as I met my Kung Fu masters, martial arts masters, by accident popped in, hey, you should check that. That's your thing. That's sense. Simple, direct, effective. Fly to Hanover, meet this guy. So I booked. There was a few places left. Hanover, and then I found out what the system is all about. It's Yamamoto's new scalp acupuncture, and you basically just put the needles into your scalp. Okay. And he found basically the whole body as a reflection, the whole body, including the organs, on the head. It was not as long, the education, as the Chinese. It's more simple. You don't need to needle the whole body. You needle just the scalp. Mm-hmm. It's very effective because the teacher, Dr. Yamamoto, who taught it by himself, actually at the age back then of 80, 6, 7. On real patients. So we went to Hanover. There is a university and they have all the university hospitals. So he let all the people who were interested to be patients there bring in. And he didn't know these people. There were people who had a stroke, people who had tinnitus, ear sounding, stuff like this. They came in, he checked it, and he showed us the style he does with people he didn't know, and we just saw how he does it. At the beginning, maybe a few hours, a few days of theory to know the system, to know the points, and then just practical work. Simple, direct, effective. And we could see some magic things, and then I said, okay, that's my style. Right. Simple, direct, effective, not talking around 15 years or 20 to have maybe a little back pain less. Yeah. Let's come to the point. Of course, you cannot guarantee, but the approach was very honest and simple and direct. Yeah, and that's, of course, what I love to do.
Yeah, this is a different approach because foot reflexory and things like this, you have the points in your foot.
Yeah.
But I never actually heard about
Actually, also he found out his system by accident. He was basically anesthetist in a hospital.
Okay.
And when he put the mask on the patient's back then, years back, roughly 50 years ago, he had to hold the head of the patients. And the patients who were operated on the left foot maybe had at the same time some problems or whatever somewhere else. And that was the start. One patient told him, hey, doc, now as you press there, whatever, I don't know what it was, doesn't hurt anymore. Okay. And he said like, that was by accident. And then for some reason, same spot, same person said, hey, at this point, I feel something. The first one, I don't feel anything, or my pain is gone. The second one, hey, what do I feel there? And then he started to, whenever he pressed this point, confirmed with the people, this point is related to, for example, the elbow. And that's how he got to get more into the Chinese medicine, into the Japanese medicine, combined the whole system, getting first 3 points, then 5 points. I think he had 5 points at the beginning, and now he has about 30 points, plus minus. I'm not sure about it, but a system created which is very effective. And you just put the needles into the head, because he found out the same you see on the feet as a reflection you find on the head.
Very interesting.
Furthermore, he is able to manipulate also the nervous system.
Okay.
The brain nerves. And the brain by itself. And also by accident he found that out.
Good things happened by an accident.
By accidents or coincidence.
Same is this new method you've been searching a bit at least. Wim Hof method.
Yeah.
And that's accidentally happened also. I think Wim Hof figured it out just by himself. He went to the cold water and started figuring these things out. What has this Wim Hof method brought you? Has it brought you something different, something new?
Yeah, being in Switzerland, having your Kung Fu schools Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, sometimes Friday evening, physical activity, you end up in Finland. Nothing bad about that. I'm very happy to be here. But of course, all of a sudden, I had my rhythm and my ritual lost. Mm-hmm. Everything I did on a regular schedule, even though it was part of my job, it was also part of my hobby, it was lost. Like it was, not anymore. So I had to find something else. Reading, I'm interested obviously, or I have been interested a lot of years. Mind, new dimension. You end up being in the cold. Finland. It's much, much colder than Switzerland. Even Switzerland, which is in Central Europe. And then I was like, you just need something. And I didn't want to end up in a Kung Fu school. I didn't want to end up in a Taijiquan school. And I didn't want to end up in Qigong and meditation also. So I was like just asking myself. And that's always when I ask myself, what can I do? Something pops. Hey, guy, check that. Then I check the internet. Wim Hof. What's that? Breathing sounds good. The guy looks good. Then I check the video. Inspirational. He lives what he teaches. Good.
Yeah, exactly.
Course, Finland. Booked. So I ended up, the breathing was in, the cold was in. I knew already in education, you most probably also, Kneipsche therapy, water therapy, cold, warm, warm, cold, rising, lowering. It was there, the knowledge. I did it in the past when we were in education. But this guy comes, hey, let's jump into the ice cold water. It's good. Said like, he is right. They knew it already. He does it. Yeah. And then I ended up with taking a course. And then I was surprised. The cold bath, the ice cold bath was not so much surprising, but the breathing was surprising me much more. Even though I was there for the cold, the breathing I knew I can do by myself, but was surprising. And then I continued and I booked some more courses, or I bought the online course, the fundamentals course. Yeah, and that brought me to Wim, and something new again. And all of what I can say now as a summary from all those guys I met, all of them lived what they've been teaching, and I think Wim is one of these guys, and yeah, I'm very happy to train his method.
Okay. Life throws at you something and you just grab it what feels good, and it leads you, it seems like it leads you in the right path at the moment.
Well, I of course ask whenever it was not only an easy situation when I was leaving Switzerland. It was not easy when I was having back pain, having the motivation to find something. I think like I just asked what I want, and then also like I ask to receive a message, and often it comes. So sometimes it's good to trust.
This is kind of like follow your heart thing.
Intuition.
Intuition, yeah.
The Chinese would say your spirituality, your spirit. Follow your destiny. Follow whatever presence, if some people like this expression.
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Well, basically, you know, it is an exchange of energies, and meanwhile, I have this confirmation, and it led me to great people, including you. I mean, it was also quite a nice thing, a coincidence.
This was a coincidence, yeah.
Because we have a lot of similarities and interests, and even the whole history and development. Yeah, that's what I trust somehow, like. Have this confidence to trust that if you really want to have something or achieve something, or if you need some help, that there is actually help, or there is something to achieve.
One thing about the master still, that you had those two very important masters in your life, and you met them occasionally and sometimes a longer period of time. How are the masters still? Are they reachable? You told me you sit them with them having a cup of tea, having a beer, maybe eating. Do they come close? Are they like father is not the right word probably, but are they close, or are they still distant because they are these grand masters?
Yeah, I think they are father-like.
Yeah.
Both. Now we have this more Western approach, Eastern approach, both in their way.
Yeah.
I would say Richard, unfortunately, he had passed now. He's in heaven, or whoever.
How did it affect you? It's about a year ago.
Of course, like something felt strange. I felt something even before I knew he was sick. It felt strange, and within quite a short time, he passed, and I knew almost when that happened, because I felt it. But meanwhile, I said, like, don't be sad, because they are happy. Yeah. And I know that he was very developed in his personal stage. He was a honest person. He did what he could in this life. He was inspirational. He trusted into where he wants to go. I know that. So he's most probably also there. So there is no need to be sad. He's happy. So I'm happy too. But of course, you feel a little sad. And to come back, like, of course, Richard was more the father as you have your real father. And I would say the more first master is rather a spiritual father. So I think it's more a Chinese thing also to keep a certain distance.
Yeah. You think you were lucky that you had these two different type of teachers and masters. So you get the spiritual part and more the actual fighting part or the self-protection part.
It's complementary.
Yeah.
It's perfect. I think it was yin and yang balance. Like it was this balance between hard and soft and hard, which was needed in my development. Yeah, absolutely. They were extremely complementary.
Nice. I've been so honored to have you here.
Well, it's my honor. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's just a coincidence, and what a coincidence. I'm just so happy. So happy that you're here. This guy just sort of accidentally bumped into your wife, and now you are here.
Yeah,
and
right.
all the things that you are bringing in this house, and for me, for my personal development, and the road I'm trying to at least build step by step now. I think you are very inspirational.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, well, I try to it makes me happy, you know. In first place, at some point, I try to do the things which makes me happy. I mean, so many things so many people I got to know, so many things happened where I saw the people have everything, but they are not so much happy. And at some point, I was the same kind of guy, especially in my sports days, having everything, but not this medal, not this title, making me feeling not well, even though the sun was shining and I had a good food and good company of people and stuff like that. So, at some point, you know, I'm able to do what I love. And I think that's a great message, which I got also from my, teachers, from all who have been following me also. You know, there's not only you're the coach and then, you know, you get inspiration from the people who get your teachings as well. I learned like you need to do the things which makes you happy. And I'm happy to be here with you, of course, too. You're also very inspirational, so don't tell anyone. I also checked your bio a little bit. And yeah, I think that's basically which keeps your mind and spirit open, especially for the people who are so stress driven, so competition driven, so success driven. At the end, you know, you can earn like, I don't know, bunch of money, but if you can't enjoy it, what do you do?
Exactly.
But if you can't even enjoy your life for what you do, then you are in a mess. If you do something you don't like, but you get a bunch of money, but you cannot even spend it, you are in double trouble. So rather having just something you really love to do and being grateful for what you're able to do with that is a better approach. And I get the impression our young generation needs this imprint, and you are a person, I hope.
Yes.
Wim is a person, Richard is a person at least. He did tell me many times that good health, family, good friends, and a good job which you love is more important than anything else. All of those guys I met so far, and they were legends by themselves, told me, you are the next one. Wim is one. We should help maybe the people, our youngsters, to get the right path again, not sitting all the time behind their iPhones, not being aware of what's going around them. So that's maybe our destiny. Maybe we met because of that.
Maybe exactly. It's crazy nowadays. As I said earlier, I'm in the beginning of this path, but I'm so happy that I grew up, sort of. So I kind of like, I was 39 and I started realizing as a 39-year-old. So I'm actually happy to be older at the moment. I'm not sad at all that I've been growing up finally, eventually. And now when I started wondering about these situations, I really see more people around that they're not happy. They're not smiling. A lot of people, they're face down. So this is probably one mission. First, have to fix yourself, and then be able to.
Of course, you can also make people. You can only make people happy when you're happy with yourself.
Exactly.
When you're happy by yourself, and you know we were in it.
Yes.
We can help the people not falling into it. That's the message. Our kids, when we have them now, being at young age, and we share some values, the mistakes we did. They don't need to get 40 until they got a clue about what they can do. Getting away from your own family. If you see maybe a person who is in your neighborhood, 15 years old, maybe instead of just shutting down, hey, wake up, motivate him. instead of we know how that leads.
Yeah.
You know, every day, personally. Yeah. So of course you don't make yourself sometimes very popular, but you know, you at least tried it. And the faster and the more early we can bring back what your father most probably experienced, his father, you know, a little bit of, they had hard times too, and didn't break down. So when we can show our kids, our next generation, even if it's not your kids, hey, you will wake up sooner or later. Life will show, but let's enjoy a little bit, have fun. Let's do it together. You did. That's what Wim tries to do. He does. That's what I try to do. Sometimes I do. That's what all of those guys, they were at some point like the guys who said like, hey, come on, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Like, that's real life.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Roland.
My pleasure. I'm very happy to be here. So, and Finland is such a, that's, you know, such a beautiful country. You have everything. You know, you have the lakes for the cold. You have the big forests everywhere. The more north you go, the more winter, but in the south it is also nice. You know, you have basically everything, and if we just can get the people a little bit away from their...
Yeah, and understand
iPhone,
the potential of the cold as well, the winter, because people are suffering in the winter. They're just terrified. Even though we have a short summer, there is no actual summer. There is, but not really, not a long term. So winter is a big period of time. Though the ideology to bring people that enjoy it. Well, some people do, of course.
Yeah.
They go skiing, jumping, whatever. But there's so many people that they just, I'm waiting for the summer. What are you waiting for? Go out there, enjoy yourself, enjoy your body, enjoy your life.
That's it. Yeah. And my kids have no choice. Simple example. What happens to my kids if the Swiss guy maybe used a little bit warmer temperatures, maybe a little more southern flavor, not even so much, quite similar. What happens if their dad complains all the time about the cold, about this and about that, and about, infection here, blah, blah, blah. You know, I cannot expect them to get strong boys if I complain all the time. So I try to turn. First off, because I love it by myself. I don't have a problem with the cold. If there is a need and you really freeze, there are still jackets to avoid the cold, but you can train your body to be more resistant of the cold. That's one thing. And the second is like, go out and enjoy still. There are so many things, despite of the fact that it's colder here, which can make you happy, like the last sunshines, sunsets, sunrise. I saw all of them. I wonder how many people saw them, but I saw. That's what I every morning do. Sunrise, sunset. I see it. That makes me happy, and all of a sudden I forget about the cold or whatever. Now, meanwhile, I even enjoy the cold. Some people may be happy to know that you are one person who can learn how to teach how to learn it. And that's what I try to do with my boys also. So I go out with them, and they even now, after a few couples of times when we saw this beautiful sunset, after the Päiväkoti, last time I wanted to go straight back home. My son in the back. No. Aurinko. Laske.
And then you know that is success.
He got. We go. We are there. I mean, he's 3.5 and the little one is 2.5. Okay, hey, Aurinko. And then we go back home.
I think that is success.
Well, that's part of my success. Yes. I mean, someone else is maybe more successful when they completed to find Pokemon 10. or this monster or this. But I think that's it. And as I told, I cannot avoid the fact that the circumstances in Finland are more different.
And when you feel mentally good yourself, when you feel good, the actual weather doesn't change anything. I've noticed that myself now.
Right.
When you feel good, it's just, maybe it's snowy, maybe it's just gray, and usually the gray feels like, I hate this. I want to get out. I want to get sunshine. I want to travel. But now when you feel good, it just doesn't affect you in a harmless way. Maybe it affects you. You're just noticing it, and it doesn't feel bad at all. It's just a different vibe.
Well, basically, if someone is interested, I mean, it's just your chemistry inside your body, The blockages, physical or organic blockages, energetic blockages, mental blockages. All this cocktail of hormones swimming here, giving you this feeling, this feedback. That's why the masters in the past said, before you know on your opponent, that was not even for the martial art, but also for your life. Before you check your other, check yourself first. Go inside, check whether you have an emotion arising when this and this happen. Work on that. And you can work on that. And of course, I agree with you completely. Once you have this right mood, it's not so much important whether there is the sunshine or the sunset. It's just good as it is, and that's where we want to go. And sometimes I even enjoy it, like, when it's like this tough wind blowing and the snow coming down. I went out and it's just like, feel alive. That's now nice. When we were waiting so long here in Helsinki for the snow, and then finally it came, but it was not so nice.
Yeah.
I feel like still, wow. And then the kids, now we can build a lumiuk or whatever. That's the things. And you can work on that. And there are many different things. And I think as an inspiration for everyone listening to this podcast, it doesn't have to be Qigong in a name. It can be yoga. It can be Wim Hof. I think there are great people out there who can help you just to feel confident with yourself if you want. But, I think you make this podcast for people who want, so we don't have to worry about the people who...
Well, that's the idea, at least.
Right.
That the people who are listening to this are the people who really want this. Yeah.
Otherwise, they would not sit down and listening.
No.
Take their time. No, and that's how we can do it. And it was, or is, very nice to have met you, and I hope we can have some more engagements.
I think we will have. And maybe next time, without the cameras or with the cameras, we never know. Maybe we are sitting in the cold pond somewhere and talking about these things. You never know. Where this leads to us. This is what it makes it very interesting.
Yeah, of course. Or maybe we can drink a beer at some point.
Not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, right.
Until next time.
Yeah. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you.
Was a pleasure, and I'm very happy to be invited.